Boy, she sure nailed the praise and worship today, didn't she?
He most certainly did.
That's just what happens whenever you let God in charge. You know, when you take yourself out of it and you let God have His way, it just seems like everything runs so smooth. And it really does. Now today we're going to talk about Noah and the ark. Now I know that that's an elementary course here. But, you know, sometimes when you're lost or sometimes when you just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, it's okay to go back to the basics, okay? Could have been worse. I could have taken you all the way to the first chapter of Genesis, but I decided to go ahead and just take you to the 6th chapter. Okay, and we're going to talk about Noah and the ark and what happened. We all seem to think that it was just, you know, the world was wicked at that time, and the Lord decided, you know what, let's just create a big flood. Let's load a couple of animals on the ark, and let's flood the world for 40 days and 40 nights, and then we'll let the sun come out, dry the land, and we'll hit a new start. Well, there's a little bit more to that story than just that, okay? It was actually 170 days that they spent in the ark. It wasn't 40 days, wasn't 60 days, wasn't 180 days. It was a year and 10 days. That's a long time to spend, even with your family. All right? Absolutely, and all those animals. So the title of the message today is, Your Time is Coming. We're going to start in Genesis 6th chapter. We're going to read verse 5 through 8. I'm going to be reading out of the NIV version today. And the Lord saw how great the wickedness of human race had become on this earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only on evil at that time. Now let's think about that just for a minute. All right, the Lord is about to do something. All right, He is about to wipe out this universe. He had enough of it. He was tired of all the wickedness. But let's just hold back before we start judging God. All right, let's just think about our attitude towards God. All right, how many times have we given up on the Lord when things weren't going our way? You know what? Forget you, Lord. I tried it, don't like it, don't want any part of it. This is exactly where the Lord's at. If you've ever felt that way about religion, church, or whatever, this is how God felt. And there's no difference. The Lord regretted that He had ever made human beings on this earth. And His heart was deeply saddened and deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of this earth the human race I have created. And with them the animals and the birds and the creatures that move along the ground. For I regret that I have ever made them. But now Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And this is where the story begins. We have given up on God so many times. We have given up on people so many times. And God was at this point. God had enough. No more. I'm going to destroy it, and that'd be it. But He found one man, one little family out of the vastness of this earth. And He said, you know what? I see favor in this man, so I'm going to give this world another chance. And this is where we pick up. It says, the waiting started the day Noah and his family and all the animals went on the ark. God sent an angel to close the door of the ark, and they waited for 7 days before anything had happened. But when it finally did, it happened big. The Bible says, springs of great depth burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. Water poured down in heaven and shot up from the earth water. Things were busy in the ark, mostly with the animals and everything. So can you imagine, all right, you've got a little family taking care of all the animals. Can you imagine the snitch? Oh my goodness. Didn't have a bedroom you could just throw everything in. All right. Didn't have a vacuum cleaner. Didn't have anything like that. You were trapped on a boat. that the angels that God sent to close the door was completely shut off. Some of that wasn't easy in a big boat tossing up and down the angry floodwaters, but God had a purpose for Noah, and he would protect the ark from the flood, and he did. But the wind still blew and the waves still tossed, and the boat moved around for about 5 months. And then we pick up the story that everybody's familiar. So the rain finally stopped. Okay? The flooding is over. And the boat is resting on top of a mountaintop. But it was still 2 weeks after that before they could look out and see other mountaintops. And as you remember throughout not kindergarten, but throughout Sunday school, that the teacher would say that, Noah sent out a dove, and the first time he went out, came back empty-handed. Second time he sent him out, came back with a olive leaf. And we think that, okay, now the angel's coming, opening the door and everything like that. But it was still a couple of months before that happened. And then for the third time he sent out a dove, and the dove never came back. Now the dove found a resting and a nesting place for him and his little family to begin. But Noah and his family is still stuck on a boat. And it wasn't no vacation. They still had to feed the animals. They still had to shovel the manure around. Still had to spend time with each other in close quarters. You're talking about cabin fever. I guarantee you this family was the ideal cabin fever family. But God had a purpose for Noah and his family. And just think about it. If God would have gave up on us, what would we be today? We wouldn't be existing. So do you think that God gets upset at us for giving up on Him? No. People seem to think, God is so high and mighty, and He is. And I say this with all respect. But you know what? He wanted to destroy us. He got so fed up. And we do too in the relationship with God sometimes. We want to give up on our relationship with God. Because you know what? It's hard. It's hard to pray. It's hard to come to church. It's hard to be good sometimes whenever you want to do what you want to do. But if you want to take that attitude to the next level, let's go back to what God was going to do. The next level would be, let's destroy God. Let's destroy humankind. That's the next level. Now, I don't know about you. I get angry at God sometimes. I've gotten angry at God in the past, and I've given the ministry up. But I always found something missing whenever I did that. I couldn't always put my fingers on it. And you got to understand, I grew up with a pastor. Well, let me backtrack. I grew up with a mom that would take a wooden spoon and a rubber slipper and beat you till you cried. All right, that's all I'm going to go on that. And I had a dad, all right, let's be honest with you. His life was kind of rough. He was a truck driver. He drank beer, smoked cigarettes, got in fights, played in the honky-tonks, and everything like that. So not an ideal preacher there, all right? But God was able to turn his life around. And my mom's, all right? And you see the results today. Has it always been perfect? No. Do they make mistakes as ministers? Yes. You know what? I make mistakes. I will continue to make mistakes. But you know who I have on my side? I have God, because one day that angel is going to come and open that door, and I'm going to be set free to start this new world. Because God, even though I wanted to give up on Him, never gave up on me. He still allowed me to have fun. He still allowed me to do what I wanted to do. But there was a time where I needed to just come to Jesus meeting, I guess you can kind of say. All right. And he realized, Robert, You know what? You've had control of your life for all these years. And look at it. You know, whenever I taught Sunday school and whenever I was teaching youth and everything like that, I always brought to remembrance about my kids. And whenever they're young and they start dating and they get interested in boys and girls and stuff like that, they never could pick the one, in Philip's case, the one that his mom and his dad wanted him to pick. All right? Always had to go with someone else. And finally, after so many years, he accumulated X amount of girlfriends. Wasn't a lot, but still, you know, quite a few girls and everything. I said, hey, Philip, why don't you just give up on you trying to pick it? Let your mom and me pick it, because you know your record is 0. You stink at it. All right, so why don't you give mom and dad a chance? Of course, he didn't listen. But now I have a beautiful granddaughter, and I'm very pleased. But at any rate, sometimes we want to take control of our lives, and that's great. God gave us a free will for a purpose. All right? You can run your life all you want. But when you're in charge, you're going to find when it's just you and you alone, you're going to find there's something missing in your life. You don't know what it is. You just know, I'm missing something. I got a beautiful wife, or I got a handsome husband. I have a good job. I have nice vehicles. I have a nice home. I have friends and family. But I'm still missing something. Can you imagine how Noah felt in the ark? I mean, he knew that one day that those doors would be open and he would see a new world. Think about God that way. Once you find that missing piece in your life, and I'm telling you right now, it's always God. If you're missing something in your life, it's God. All right? The door opened. They got out. And what happened? Let's forget the past, all right? From the flood to today, look what's happened. I don't know about you, but if I would look at God and the decision he made, whether or not to find favor in Noah or destroy the earth, and looking at the world today, would you honestly say he made a good choice? School system, broken. Government, broken. Everything around us seems to be broken. Let me give you a little hint. Even the churches are broken. Okay, because the churches are looking for programs. Churches are looking for people to pay their tithes, to give unto the church. Don't give a dime to this church. Give it to God. Because if you give it to the church, we're going to mess it up. What you need to do is you need to pray over whatever you give. Your time. I'm not even talking about money. Just your time, your effort, your prayers. God doesn't need your money. What he needs is you. Because I don't know about you, but none of us are millionaires that I know of. And you may be. But none of us are millionaires right now.
I would have 5 more numbers.
That's it. So money's not a factor with God. All right? What he wants is people serious. All right? Do you think that Noah, whenever he took this task on, do you think that he was going to be in a boat for a year with stinky animals? And he had women on the boat, and he had his sons on the boat too. But I don't know about you, but even in a workplace, you get more than 2 women together, it's total chaos. It really is. I'm going to preach about the guys here in a second, all right? Because we're not perfect, all right? By any means of that. But I will tell you, there's a lot of drama when it comes to people trapped in a place. Can you imagine the complaints? Can you imagine sitting down for dinner? All right? Whatever you were eating. And smelling the ark. I don't want us to focus on that, but just understand, it was not a life of luxury then. All right? Noah just didn't find favor, and every day he had servants bowing at his knees and serving him, and everything was rosy and everything. God found favor in Noah and locked him up in a boat for a year with nothing but poo-poo and animals.
And what about the vegetation?
Absolutely. You know, I don't know about you, but if God found favor with me, I would expect a lot. All right?
Yeah.
But you know what? I still have bills, still have to go to work, still have to prepare messages, still have to be prayed for and pray for other people. But you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't either. And whenever I think that, you know what, God's not in charge, I just go over there and I pick up my granddaughter and I play with her. And I see such an innocence in her right now. And I realize, you know what? God created this, gave her to me. How can you not believe in God at that point? How can you not say that God loves you? I look at the baby now, Mr. Elliott. He's looking at me too. At least I think he is. Such innocence. But one day, guess what? He's going to be your age, and he's going to have lived a life like you have. And I don't know about you, but the life that I lived was so much easier with God in it. I didn't say it was easy. I just said it was easier. All right? Because we still go through trials and tribulations. We still go through hardships and everything like that. But let me tell you, it is well worth it. All right? Whenever you look at what could have happened, Noah found favor, or God found favor in Noah. If he didn't, we wouldn't exist today, plain and simple. Plain and simple. Guess what? We wouldn't even have Jesus on the cross. Would have missed all that. God would have never been sad and heartbroken whenever Jesus died on the cross. But guess what? Is God going to find favor in you today? Is God going to look at you and see something is different about this man? Something is different about this woman? I've got to continue to let my plan continue in this world. Are we going to take the attitude, well, you know what, this world is going to hell in a handbasket. Why do I need to serve the Lord? Well, let me ask you, why do you need to serve the Lord? Why should we serve God in a day like today? Like we talked last week, you know, there's going to be a time where people are going to have the mark. All right? And I don't want to get sad and I don't want to get into all that. But there will be a day, whether we're a part of it or not, whether you believe that or not, there's coming a day. All right? And I don't care what your stance is. You got to realize, you know what? Everything's going to a computer chip. All right? There's things that's already happened. All right? And it's happening that we're not aware of yet. All right? So it's in the works. All right? It's not going to be long now. However you believe. But you know what? I'm not worried about it. I've got God. Right? If I go through a hard time, I still got God. But you know what? I'm 50, I don't even know how old I am. Let's say I'm 55 right now, 54. All right? I've been through 54 years of good and bad. Have you ever tried to measure your life as to how much is good and how much is bad? I mean, have you really ever done that? Well, let me tell you. I looked right before I came up on the platform this morning. At the time that I looked, there was 82,000 deaths today. 82,000 people were dead before I even started preaching. And look at our pews. Although we've got a lot of people here, don't get me wrong, but there's plenty of room in this church, just like there's plenty of room in whatever church you want to pick. All right? Do you think if they had a choice, honestly, if they just had a split second in the coffin today, you think they would rather be lying there dead or in a church somewhere? Well, let's be realistic. Some of them will even pick the honky-tonk. Which is okay, because guess what? God likes honky-tonks. God loves those places. Now, we as churches, we think, oh no, we don't need to go there. Do y'all remember Mickey Gilley? All right. Do y'all? Okay. I love Mickey Gilley. I love the music. I love the way he did his piano. I love the show every week. I love going to Houston and passing and seeing his little club. I guess it was on the left-hand side, if I remember correctly. And it was always packed. And at that time, Dad wanted to start a group and wanted you to sing. And I wasn't old enough to play at that time, but they were going to, go in the honky-tonks and start playing music and everything like that. I just remember, man, how great it would be in there. You know what? I still want to go in places like that, but I don't want to go in there to do what everybody else is doing. I might dance with my wife, might even have a Coke. But you know what? I'm going to talk to some people. I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to preach to them. I'm going to get to know them. All right? That's what's wrong with the churches today. We're afraid to go in there like, oh, that's going to rub out on us. Really? They're human beings just like us. All right? They're seeking something. They're seeking happiness. They're seeking fun. And that's fine. But my God's got something to offer. Let me just present it to him. Not in a way that it's just, it turns them off. All right? Judging people is the best way to turn people off. Plain and simple. All right? If I walked into the honky-tonk and I saw Sister Jeanette there, some churches would, all right, you're through with praise and worship. We don't need your kind. We need people that are perfect, that don't sin, all right, that don't like to have that kind of fun. Well, let me ask you something. Who did Jesus preach to? He didn't go to the temple and only preach to the high priest and all the saved people and everything like that. All right. He went where he was needed. You know what? I think God is needed more in the church than he's needed in those kind of places. I hope you understand what I'm saying there. All right. Because if we're sitting there and we're judging those kind of people, all right, the church isn't made for perfect people. It's made for sinners. All right? And guess what? I'm here. All right? And don't think that your sin is so great that God won't have a relationship with you. God made you. All right? You're destined to have a relationship with God. All right? You know, and if it hair lips anyone, again, it's your relationship with God. I'm not here to change you, neither is anyone else in this congregation. We're not here to change people. We're to present the Lord to them and let God do the work. Because if I did it, I would have got fired a long time ago and I would be in unemployment right now. But I realized when God gave this church a second chance that we need to forget about judging people. We need to be the angel that God sends to open the door. God didn't send the angel to preach to Noah. Sole purpose for that angel was to close the door and open the door. The angel didn't go in there and clean up all the poo-poo and all the horse and the cow and the birds and the animals stuff. He stayed in his lane and he did exactly what God asked him to do. Hey, go open the door. Go close the door. But I'm an angel. I'm a servant of God. I'm supposed to save people. I'm supposed to pick up and clean things and make everything pure. God said, hey, all I want you to do, go open the door. Go close the door. Don't judge. Don't take it upon yourself to clean up the mess. We come to a time today where we find out in our lives what really matters. God should be at the top. Family should be the next. And should I go any further than that? Because if you put it in that perspective, everything else just seems to fall in place. We just got finished with graduation. And I don't know about you, but have you been out there in the workplace? Last month alone, the project that I was on, we fired over 200 people. We hire over, well, we need to be at 720, but you know, we're about 620, so we're 100 short. And all we're doing is we're firing one burger flipper for another burger flipper. Because the attitude of the world is, hey, I don't owe you squat. You owe me. All right. But have we taken that with God? Have we taken that attitude with God? God, I don't owe you squat. You owe me everything. You owe me a great wife, a great husband, a great family, a great car, a great job, and all that. Well, let me tell you, God paid his debt a long time ago. I'm not even talking about Jesus on the cross. I'm talking about God that saw favor in Noah and decided to let this world continue, to allow you to be here today, to live the life that you're living. So God don't owe you squat. Well, God, Brother Robert, that's kind of hard. Well, if you dance around it, we want to dance, but we want to leave with someone that didn't bring us to the dance. If you came to the dance with God, leave the dance with God. Because no one else can replace him. I don't know why that song came into my mind, but it did. And I know that Noah is a simple story, but if you really realize what the story is all about, it's about God wanting to give up on us. Which is no different than how we feel, because sometimes we want to give up on God. And it's about sticking it out for a long period, waiting to see what God has in store for you. In Noah's case, it took a year. But I'm going to give you one more perspective, and then I will shut up because we have communion. But I want to read you this little story, and forgive me if you've already heard this before. But listen to what is being said here. It's called The Pregnant Dog and the Elephant. An elephant and dog became pregnant at the same time. 3 months down the line, the dog gave birth to 6 puppies. 6 months later, the dog was pregnant again, and 9 months on, it gave birth to another dozen puppies. And then the pattern continued. On the 18th month, the dog approached the elephant, questioning, "Are you sure that you're pregnant?" "We became pregnant on the same date. I have given birth 3 times to a dozen puppies, yet you are still pregnant. What's going on?" The elephant replied, "There is something that I want you to understand." Now listen, there's something I want you to understand. What I am carrying is not a puppy, but an elephant. I only give birth to 1 in 2 years. When my baby hits the ground, the earth will feel it. When my baby crosses the road, human beings will stop and watch in admiration. What I carry draws attention. So what am I carrying that is so great? Now listen to this. I don't want to give birth to a puppy ministry. All right? Now listen, I don't want to give birth to a cute, tiny little puppy. When God gives me something like Noah, when I give birth to it, I want it to hit the ground, and I want the earth to feel the power of it. And a lot of you are questioning your ministry and everything like that. Well, why is everybody else getting blessed? Why is this happening to this person? Why is everybody else? Give it time. In Noah's case, it took over a year. In your life, it may be a week. It may be 6 weeks. Maybe 6 months. It may even be 6 years. But once you give birth to that, trust me, this earth will fill when you give birth. And people won't have to question your ministry. People will know. And when you walk in the room and they see the Holy Spirit on you, my God, can you imagine? But if you quit, if you open a window, if you open the door on yourself and you let the floodwaters come in, you're going to die. You're going to drown. Well, that's not the story of Noah. If Noah gave up on God, it could have very well have been. And just think, if you give up on God, what could have happened? So let's just empty that from our mind. Let's just say, you know what, God? You're absolutely right. I don't understand why sister so-and-so and brother so-and-so and why this church is doing so well, and it seems like we're just at a standstill. Well, if it took God a year, who am I to judge? I don't know about you, we've got 1, 2, 3 visitors today. by accident. There's a purpose. There's a reason. For some, it took a lot of prayer. And then some, it was just, hey, why don't you come to church with me? It was that simple. Why don't you just come to church with me? Well, you know me. I'm not about numbers, and I'm not about, God forbid, I'm certainly not about money. But let me tell you, when it comes to God, He cares about everything. So if you care about money and you care about people, okay. But you know what I really, really care about? God's church. I wish we could rename this church and name it God's church. We went over to Tim's house yesterday. And you let me tell you, what a trip. Not gonna lie, what a trip. Seriously, there's no way I could have found his house. He is out there. All right? And I've got all the technology in the world. But I had to follow my sister and John just to reach it. And then I had no idea what I was getting into. But isn't that just like God? I had no idea where God was. All right? So I just followed someone, and I found God. And then when I found God, I had no idea what I was getting into. Now I look over there at Brother Bill. Now I look at Sister Deborah. Now I look at John giving his sis a hard time with a can of air. And then I realized, you know what? I came out here to bring joy to Tim. But I found myself finding that Tim gave joy to me. Isn't that what God's all about too? You know what? I came looking for God to give me joy. But by me coming to visit God, I gave God joy. Hopefully that'll sink in before today's over. All right, Sister Deborah, we have communion today. And Sister Deborah...